Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I guess, we've seen different iterations of the firearms registry come before our government, certainly. And one of the mandates that we had was to get rid of that particular registry, and we did so, with the exception of 2 copies we're told by the Information Commissioner was preserved for a person named Bill Clinette. And he had made an ATIP request that he wanted to preserve that particular part of the data. Well, to me it seems more than strange, and this is in reference to some of my colleagues across the way comments about that it isn't a registry, it's not a backdoor registry, it's not a front door registry, etc., etc. Well, I beg to differ, Mr. Speaker, and this comes right out of C-71 itself. I'm just going to read it out, and I'm just going to let the audience tonight out there and the folks that are watching this debate, which I know there's a lot that are concerned with this bill and how far it goes, especially with law-abiding firearms owners. But this is the example of what I call the front door registry, the one that's not supposed to exist. The minister has said that they're not going to reestablish the registry. I even looked just at the talking points of the Liberal Party. I just got it, looked at my phone and Twitter, and they say no new firearms registry. Well, again, here we go. The Commissioner of Firearms shall, for the purpose of the administration and enforcement of the Firearms Registration Act, Chapter 15 of the Statutes of Quebec 2016, provide the Quebec Minister, now wait for it, with a copy of all records that were in the Canadian Firearms Registry on April 3rd, 2015, and that relate to the firearms registered as at that day as non-restricted firearms. And it goes on. If the Quebec Minister provides the Commissioner with a written request to that effect before the end of the 120th day, the day on which the Commissioner sends written notice under subsection 2. And Mr. Speaker, that isn't some legislation from 2 years ago. This is legislation, C-71, the one that we're debating on the floor of the House right now. So to me it seems more than strange that the Minister can actually get up and say what we're saying is false, that we're calling this, what they're proposing, a new firearms registry. Let me just read it again, just for those who didn't hear this. For the purpose of the administration and enforcement of the Firearms Registration Act, Chapter 15 of the Statutes of Quebec 2016, provide the Quebec Minister with a copy of all records that were in the Canadian Firearms Registry. That's giving the hard drive to the Quebec Minister if they ask for it, on April 3rd, 2015. So this is data that's well past. It's almost 3 years old, and that relate to the firearms registered as at that day as non-restricted firearms. So one thing, we all know that firearms owners, I'm a person that owns handguns, so I'm a restricted firearms owner. We're already on a registry and a database for that purpose alone, and prohibited firearms owners are there as well. But this government says they're not creating a new non-restricted firearms registry. Well, Mr. Speaker, clearly I said it twice, and maybe the members across the way, I don't see, they're all looking at their iPads, so I'm not sure that they're listening.
3 that are here.
Yeah, we can't refer to how many are here in this place, but certainly they don't seem to be interested in the facts of their own bill that say they're going to pass a copy of the registry that was supposed to have been destroyed, Mr. Speaker, with the previous government. And now a copy is going to be given by that minister to the province of Quebec to reestablish a firearms registry. Now, I don't know how much clearer we can be in reestablishing a registry in Quebec, because I guess, Mr. Speaker, the next thing that, what of course are you going to do when you have a former firearms registry that's now 3 years old? You're going to update that firearms registry data. So the Quebec minister, let's say he makes the request for this particular firearms data registry, of the data that's supposed to have been destroyed, brings it into the province, and this isn't, it's speculation a little bit, but it doesn't take too far to see what's going to happen. The Quebec government takes the particular copy and then it chooses to update it. Chooses to update its registry that's reestablished, and here we go again, Mr. Speaker. We have a firearms registry that's going to happen in Quebec as a result of this particular legislation.
But it won't be new.
And I think the troubling part of this, Mr. Speaker, is that the Information Commissioner preserved a copy out of a request by one individual named Bill Clinette. That's the only reason why this copy has been preserved. I'm told that there's actually 2 copies of this. The only reason why it sits in a vault to this day is to honor a request by that same individual, Mr. Bill Clinette. For no other purpose does it exist. So for the minister now to offer a copy of that to the Quebec government, it goes against a Supreme Court ruling that's saying that the jurisdiction lies within this place in the federal government. And it also, I guess, strikes me as strange that a previous government, its mandate was to destroy the registry. It did that, made attempts to do that. Because of a request, it's been preserved. To me, it's clear this registry, the data as it sits, the 2 copies that exist in this vault need to be destroyed once this requirement is met. But to me, Mr. Speaker, this is an obvious case of establishing a firearms registry through the front door. And after, when I come back, Mr. Speaker, I will also speak about the registry as it sits, as they try and get it through the back door. And I think my time's up, Mr. Speaker, so I'll pass it back to you.